Hotel Maid stopped a Billionaire's Gala with a laundry cart, then everyone saw the medical cooler inside. The Billionaire hotel owner was halfway through, thanking the city's most powerful doctors, when a housekeeper rolled a laundry cart straight across the ballroom floor and blocked the stage. Then she did something that looked unforgivable. She pulled a small white medical cooler out from under stained sheets, placed it on the table beside the champagne glasses, and refused to let security touch it until someone called the guest whose name had vanished from the hotel system. Graham Ellison saw only a maid in a wrinkled uniform humiliating him in front of donors, surgeons, investors, and cameras. But what if the lowest paid woman in his hotel was the only person who understood that lost property is not lost when it can still save a life? And what would you call disobedience if the thing being protected was a child nobody important had remembered to look for? The wheels of the laundry cart squeaked across the polished ballroom floor. It was a small sound, almost ridiculous under the violins and polite applause, but it cut through the room like a chair scraping across a church service. Every head turned, not all at once. First the servers near the back wall, then the guests at the closest tables, then the woman playing violin near the flower arch, her bow pausing mid-note, then the photographers, then the donors. Finally, Graham Ellison himself. He stood on the stage beneath warm gold lights, silver hair combed perfectly, black tuxedo tailored so well it looked less worn than installed. Behind him, a screen showed the logo of Ellison Grand Hotels and the slogan for the evening, "Hospitality with a Human Heart." On the white tablecloth in front of the stage sat auction paddles, crystal water glasses, pledge cards, and a row of champagne flutes waiting for the toast. The ballroom smelled like lilies, roasted chicken, floor polish, perfume, and money trying to smell like kindness. The woman pushing the cart did not belong in that picture. Her name was Rosalie Vega. She was 42 years old, a senior housekeeper at the Ellison Grand Riverfront Hotel in Louisville, Kentucky. Most guests knew her only as the soft knock before checkout, the brown hands folding towels, the quiet voice asking if they needed extra soap. Most managers knew her as employee number 417, reliable, rarely late, never dramatic. That night, she looked dramatic. Her gray housekeeping dress was damp at the sleeves. One side of her hair had slipped from its bun. A radio hung from her belt, buzzing with voices she ignored. On her wrist was a faded purple hair tie that had belonged to her daughter. Around her neck, tucked under her collar, was a small brass key on a chain. A security guard reached the cart first. "Mom, you cannot be in here." Rosalie kept both hands on the handle, then moved the banquet. "I am not moving the cart." A few people laughed because they thought she was joking. She was not. Graham stepped down from the stage with the careful patience of a man who had learned that anger looked better when wrapped in manners. "Ms. Vega," she said. "Miss Vega," he said, already hearing the public relations disaster before he understood the sentence. "This is a private fundraising event. Whatever issue housekeeping has, it can be handled through your supervisor." Rosalie looked at him, then at the cart, then at the cooler hidden under a fold of stained sheets. "My supervisor told me to log it as abandoned property and finish the floor. Then do that." "I did the first part," she said. "The second part can wait." The room tightened. Graham's hotel manager, Preston Vale, hurried toward them with a red face and a headset clipped to one ear. "Rosalie, stop. Right now." She did not look at him. Graham lowered his voice. "What is in the cart?" Rosalie reached under the pile of sheets and lifted the cooler. Small, white, soft-sided, medical label on top, blue ice packs inside. A paper tag tied to the zipper with a piece of string. The tag had been bent, damp, and nearly torn away, but the handwriting was still visible. "Please keep cold. Room 1612. Graham looked at the cooler, then at the ballroom, then at the cameras. "Why is this here?" Rosalie's answer was quiet. "Because it was almost sent to laundry." Preston stepped forward. "It was found after checkout in a vacant room. We have a lost property process." Rosalie finally turned to him. "No, we have a drawer." That sentence landed badly. Preston's face hardened. Graham heard disrespect. He heard an hourly employee embarrassing a manager in front of donors. He heard the kind of workplace problem that people in suits call tone before they call it truth. He did not hear the warning, not yet. Rosalie placed the cooler on the table like it was a sleeping child. "Somebody needs this," she said. A doctor at table 7 stood halfway from his chair. "Is that medication?" "I don't know," Rosalie said. "I did not open the inside pouch. I know the tag says keep cold. I know it was found in a room checked out under the wrong name. I know the front desk called the number on file and got a disconnected line. I know the guest notes were cleared when the room was flipped to VIP hold. And I know the laundry truck leaves in 12 minutes. Graham looked sharply at Preston. "Cleared?" Preston lifted both hands slightly. "Not deleted, cleared. The room was reassigned for early arrival. Standard procedure." Rosalie said, "Standard procedure almost put this in a warehouse with wet towels." The ballroom had gone silent now. Not polite silent, listening silent. Graham stepped closer to the cooler. The medical label had a pharmacy name, a patient first name, and a date. He could not read the rest from where he stood, and Rosalie shifted her body slightly so he would not try. "I am not showing private information to a ballroom," she said. That was the first moment Graham Ellison noticed something he did not expect. She was not trying to create spectacle. She was trying to control it. 36 hours earlier, Rosalie Vega had been standing in the basement laundry room at 5:40 in the morning, feeding sheets into a machine large enough to swallow a person's whole bad week. The laundry room at the Ellison Grand was always hot, even in winter. Steam softened the ceiling paint. Carts rolled in and out with labels written in black marker. King sheets, spa towels, banquet linen, staff uniforms. Lost and found, if anyone remembered. Rosalie knew the hotel from the bottom up. She knew which elevator groaned before it stopped. She knew which hallway window leaked during sideways rain. She knew which ice machine spat water onto the floor and made guests blame housekeeping. She knew which conference groups left 20 half-empty coffee cups in every room. She knew which wedding parties broke glasses and hid them under towels. She knew which guests left pill bottles on nightstands, which guests tipped with folded bills, which guests tipped with religious pamphlets, and which managers used the word family only when asking staff to cover extra shifts. She had worked there 11 years. Before that, she had cleaned hospital rooms. Before that, motel rooms near the interstate. Before that, offices at night with her mother, back when Rosalie was 16, and thought exhaustion was a thing adults exaggerated, until she watched her mother fall asleep sitting up with one shoe still on. Her mother, Inez Vega, had carried a brass key from a factory locker where she once kept her lunch, work shoes, and a photograph of Rosalie as a baby. After the factory closed, Inez wore the key on a chain. She said losing the job had taken the locker, but not the lesson. "Keys are not magic," she told Rosalie. "They only matter if you use them to open the right door." That became the moral line in Rosalie's life. She had heard it when she wanted to ignore a guest's wallet left under a mattress, because turning it in meant paperwork at the end of a double shift. She had heard it when a new housekeeper cried in the supply closet after a manager blamed her for missing towels that had never been stocked. She had heard it when her own daughter, Maribel, was 8 years old and asked why her grandmother returned a diamond bracelet to a woman who had not said thank you. Inez had tapped the brass key against the kitchen table and said, "Baby, we do right because we live with ourselves after everyone else goes home." Rosalie still wore that key. She also wore Maribel's purple hair tie around her wrist. It had once been bright lavender, the kind of cheap, stretchy tie sold in packs of 12 at the pharmacy. Now it was faded at the edges, stretched thin, almost useless as a hair tie, but Rosalie wore it like a promise. Maribel was 19 now, a community college student, and 3 months into recovery, after a car accident left her with nerve pain, missed classes, and a medical bill that arrived in envelopes with windows clear enough to see trouble through. She lived at home again, sleeping in the small bedroom she had once painted yellow. Some mornings she laughed like herself. Some mornings she stared at the wall because pain can make a young person old before breakfast. Rosalie's private burden was not dramatic enough for a news story. It was daily. Medication reminders, insurance calls, a used car with a transmission that slipped, rent due every first, a daughter who hated needing help, a landlord who had started saying market rate as if the market had ever tucked a child into bed, a mother's brass key, a purple hair tie, a late notice folded inside Rosalie's work bag beside 2 granola bars and a bus pass. That Thursday morning, Rosalie had counted cash at the kitchen table before her shift. $184. The pain clinic copay was $130. The electric bill was past due. The grocery list was written on the back of a pharmacy receipt. Rice, eggs, applesauce, detergent, chicken thighs if marked down, ginger tea for Maribel, batteries for the glucose meter that belonged to the neighbor downstairs, because Rosalie checked on Mrs. Larkin twice a week, too. Rosalie had never been good at only caring for one person. That was part of the problem. Maribel came into the kitchen slowly, one hand on the wall. Her dark curls were tied badly at the back of her head with a blue scrunchie because the purple one had been on Rosalie's wrist since the accident. You are counting like the money might multiply if you stare hard enough. Rosalie covered the cash with her palm. It has done stranger things. No, it has not. Rosalie smiled because Maribel smiled first. On the refrigerator, under a magnet shaped like a strawberry, was a note Maribel had written during her first week home from the hospital. Mom, I took the morning pills. I stretched. I did not lift the laundry basket. I am still trying. Rosalie looked at that note every day, not because it fixed anything, because it told the truth without dressing it up. Before leaving, she touched the purple hair tie, then the brass key. Maribel saw. Grandma's line? Rosalie picked up her bag. Keys only matter if you open the right door. Mom, Maribel said gently, please do not open every door. Rosalie kissed her forehead. I am trying to be selective. At work, selective was difficult. The Ellison Grand Riverfront Hotel had 480 rooms, 26 floors, 3 restaurants, 2 ballrooms, 1 spa, and a staff schedule built by someone who had clearly never cleaned a bathroom after a bachelor party. That week, the hotel was full because of the Children's Surgical Futures Gala, a fundraiser hosted by Graham Ellison's foundation to support pediatric care access. There were famous surgeons in corner suites, hospital executives in Riverview rooms, wealthy donors on the club floors, and families of former patients invited to speak during the dinner. Graham Ellison liked events like this. Not because he was fake. That would be too simple. He had lost his younger sister, Claire, to a childhood heart condition when he was 12. He remembered hospital chairs with cracked vinyl, vending machine dinners, his mother crying quietly in the parking garage, and his father becoming very still for a year. He remembered a nurse who brought him apple juice even though he was not the patient. He remembered wanting someone with money to walk in and make the lights less cold. When Graham became rich through hotels, real estate, and luxury senior living, he built a foundation that funded hospital wings, travel grants, family waiting rooms, and medical lodging partnerships. He wrote checks that helped real children. He had the plaques to prove it, but also letters in a private drawer from parents who said that the foundation had kept them close to their child during treatment. His kindness was real. His blindness was real too. He loved clean images. Smiling families, polished lobbies, donor plaques, ribbon cuttings, rooms where suffering entered only after it had been edited into a story people could applaud. He believed hospitality meant excellence. He did not always understand that excellence depended on people he rarely saw unless something went wrong. Rosalie saw them. Housekeepers with wrists taped under gloves, dishwashers with steam burns, bell attendants carrying luggage heavier than policy allowed, overnight front desk clerks deciding whether a tired family could wait in the lobby after a hospital discharge went wrong, maintenance men fixing toilets in suits because wealthy guests believed plumbing should apologize when it failed. She also saw guests after the cameras left. Families eating cold takeout from paper bags because hospital cafeterias had closed. Mothers washing baby bottles in hotel sinks. Fathers sitting on hallway floors because the room was too small for their fear. Grandparents sleeping in chairs because the child needed the bed. People with hospital bracelets still on their wrists asking for late checkout in voices that already expected no. The gala guests saw the hotel at its brightest. Rosalie saw it at its truest. At 8:20 that morning, Rosalie was assigned to the 16th floor, rooms 1610 through 1624. Checkout rush, VIP turnover, the worst kind of morning. The housekeeping board on the wall glowed with colors that looked cheerful until you knew what they meant. Red rooms were dirty, yellow rooms were pending inspection, green rooms were ready, purple rooms were VIP priority. Room 1612 was red with a purple border, which meant clean it fast, clean it perfectly, and do not ask why the people who left needed more time. It had been occupied by a family under the name Parker, at least according to the board. 2 adults, 1 child, 3 nights, late checkout requested, denied because the room had to be reassigned to a pediatric surgeon arriving early for the gala. When Rosalie knocked, no one answered. She waited, knocked again. Housekeeping, silence. She entered with her master key. The room looked like a family had left in a hurry. Not messy like carelessness, messy like fear had grabbed everyone by the shoulders. Crumpled tissues near the bed, a child's sock under the desk, half a banana in the trash, a coloring page on the floor showing a dragon with blue wings, a pharmacy receipt folded near the sink. The bathroom counter held a paper cup, a toothbrush wrapper, and a damp washcloth folded badly by someone trying to be helpful while exhausted. Rosalie had cleaned enough rooms to know the difference between messy and afraid. This room felt afraid. She started at the door the way she always did. Check lock, check floor, check beds, check nightstand, check outlets, check bathroom, check closet, check safe, check fridge, then clean. It was a rhythm built from years of noticing what people forgot when they were rushing to the next hard thing. The closet was empty except for a wire hanger bent at the hook. The safe was open, the drawers were clear. Under the bed she found a sticker from the hospital parking garage and a tiny plastic horse with one missing leg. Then she opened the mini fridge. The white cooler sat inside. Not hidden, not abandoned. Waiting. Rosalie saw the tag first. Please keep cold. Room 1612, her hand stopped. She did not open it. She did not need to. People do not write, please keep cold on things that can wait in a cabinet. She called the housekeeping office. Lost item in 1612, she said. Medical cooler, still cold, needs front desk contact. Her supervisor Denise answered with a tired voice. Bag it, tag it, bring it down. It says keep cold, then put it in the break room fridge. Our break room fridge has lunches. Rosalie. I am saying this is not a phone charger. A pause. Fine, bring it to the front desk. Rosalie placed the cooler on top of her cart, wrapped in a clean towel so it would not warm too fast in the hallway. She finished the first sweep of the room, but did not start stripping the bed. Not yet. The cooler felt like a person had left a sentence unfinished, and Rosalie could not clean around it, like punctuation did not matter. When she reached the service elevator, Preston Vale stepped out with a tablet in one hand. Preston was the hotel's operations manager. 38. Ambitious. Smooth when guests were watching. Sharp when staff were alone. He did not think of himself as cruel. He thought of himself as responsible, which is how many people begin excusing the small harms that keep schedules pretty. Preston had started as a night auditor in a roadside hotel outside Lexington. He had worked up, degree by degree, shift by shift. He knew what it was to be blamed by guests for broken systems. He knew how quickly an owner could turn one bad review into a manager's failure. He had a pregnant wife at home and a mortgage that made him look at labor reports like blood pressure readings. He believed procedure protected everyone. Sometimes it did. Sometimes it protected the hotel from seeing people. What is that? He asked. Medical cooler from 1612. His eyes flicked to the tag. The room has to be ready by 10. I called it in. Front desk already tried the number on file. Disconnected. Then we try another way. There is no other way if the guest profile is incomplete. Rosalie looked at him. There was a child in that room. And there are guests waiting for rooms on 10 floors. The service elevator doors opened. Inside were 2 laundry attendants and 3 carts piled with sheets. Preston pointed. Send the linens down. Bring the cooler to lost property. Lost property is a cabinet. It is climate controlled. No, your office is climate controlled. The cabinet is next to the copier. His jaw tightened. Do not start. Rosalie touched the brass key under her collar. Keys only matter if you use them to open the right door. She took the cooler to the front desk herself. The front desk was chaos. Checkouts, arrivals, donors asking for suite upgrades, a guest demanding hypoallergenic pillows, a courier waiting for a signature, phones blinking red, a woman in a navy suit telling a clerk that her room should not be near elevators because she had paid for quiet, a man wearing a hospital visitor badge asking whether there was a shuttle to St. Anselm Children's and being handed a brochure without anyone looking at his face. A young clerk named Amaya looked up when Rosalie approached. I need help with this. Amaya read the tag and lowered her voice. Oh, can you contact the guest? The Parker profile only has one phone number and it is disconnected. Email, blank. Address, third-party booking. Partial address hidden. Rosalie took a breath. Who checked them in? Amaya clicked. Another guest interrupted. Excuse me, I have been waiting. Amaya flinched. Rosalie stepped aside, but not away. After 3 minutes, Amaya turned the screen slightly so only Rosalie could see the top line. Here is the weird thing. The room was not originally Parker. It was under Daniel and Keisha Monroe, then changed to Parker at check-in because the card authorization matched a hospital travel fund voucher. Why? I do not know. Maybe privacy, maybe billing. Sometimes the voucher company books under a placeholder name and the family gives their real names at check-in. Can you search Monroe? Amaya hesitated. Preston said we cannot go digging through profiles for abandoned items. This is not a hat. I know. A manager called Amaya's name from the other end of the desk. Amaya whispered, I will try when it slows down. When it slows down, that cooler may be warm. Rosalie hated the edge in her own voice. Amaya did not deserve it. I am sorry, Rosalie said. Amaya swallowed. No, you are right. The phone rang again. Then another. Rosalie took the cooler back because leaving it on the front desk felt wrong. She found an unused refrigerator in the banquet prep pantry, checked that it was empty except for sealed bottled water, and placed the cooler inside with a handwritten note. Medical item from room 1612. Do not move. Contact housekeeping supervisor or front desk manager. Then she took a picture of the note, not because she planned a fight, because her mother had taught her that truth needs a place to stand. At 11:30, the first retention turn arrived in the shape of a child's dragon coloring page. Rosalie had almost thrown it away, almost. It had been under the desk, half folded, with blue crayon scraped hard into the wings. On the back, in a child's uneven handwriting, was one sentence. Dr. Bell says I can go home after the big medicine. Rosalie stood in the hallway with the page in her hand. The big medicine. She looked toward the banquet pantry. Then she looked at the room assignment board. 1612 had already been marked clean. A new guest would enter in 20 minutes. The old family was becoming invisible in real time. Rosalie slipped the coloring page into a clear lost property sleeve and wrote the room number, time found, and her initials. She did not know whether it was evidence. She only knew it belonged to the truth. At noon, she used her break to go back to the front desk. Amaya looked pale. I found a Monroe, she whispered. Keisha Monroe. Phone number disconnected. But there is a note from check-in. They asked about hospital shuttle times. Which hospital? St. Anselm Children's. The Gala Hospital. Rosalie felt the first click of connection. Can you call St. Anselm? Amaya shook her head. We cannot call a hospital and ask about patients. Privacy. Can we call the travel fund? The voucher office is closed for lunch. Of course it is. Amaya looked down. Preston cleared the guest notes when he reassigned the room. He said old notes confuse VIP service. Rosalie went still. What notes? I only saw one before it vanished. It said mother requested fridge check before departure. Rosalie closed her eyes. A mother had asked the hotel to check the fridge. The hotel had forgotten. The hotel had then erased the reminder. Not maliciously. Not dramatically. Cleanly. Like wiping a counter. Rosalie returned to housekeeping and found Denise by the linen chute. I need 20 minutes to track the guest from 1612. Denise did not look up from her clipboard. No, this is serious. I believe you. I also have 18 rooms open, 2 call-outs, and Preston asking why you are wandering around like a detective. The cooler is in lost property. It should still be cold. Rosalie, I cannot protect you if you keep making yourself difficult. There it was, the warning wrapped in care. Rosalie knew Denise had a son in trade school and a husband out of work after a warehouse injury. She knew Denise fought battles staff never saw. She also knew fear could make good people guard bad doors. I am not trying to be difficult. Denise's eyes softened for half a second. I know, but the hotel does not reward the difference. That afternoon, Rosalie made a choice small enough that no one clapped and costly enough that she felt it immediately. She clocked out for lunch, walked 4 blocks to a copy shop, and paid $14 to print guest-facing records she was allowed to access from the lost property system, plus a courier request form for medical items she found in the hotel policy archive. It was an old policy, last updated 8 years earlier, written after a guest left insulin in a room. Medical items requiring refrigeration must be escalated immediately to duty manager, secured in designated cold storage, documented by 2 employees, and guest contact attempts logged hourly for the first 6 hours. Rosalie stared at the page, designated cold storage, 2 employees, hourly logs. None of that had happened. When she returned, Preston was waiting near the service elevator. Where were you? Lunch. You left property unsecured. It is in the banquet pantry refrigerator with a note. His face changed. You put guest property in food service storage? Sealed. Empty shelf. Photographed. Because lost property has no refrigerator. You had no authorization. It needed cold. You are not qualified to decide that. The tag decided. Preston stepped closer. His voice dropped, and for a moment Rosalie saw not a villain, but a man terrified of the wrong failure being blamed on him. Listen carefully. Tonight matters. Mr. Ellison has board members, hospital leadership, press, and donors in this building. If a medical item is mishandled, legal will ask why housekeeping touched it. If we release it to the wrong person, legal will ask why we did not verify. If we call the wrong number and mention medicine, legal will ask why we exposed private information. You think you are helping. I am trying to keep this hotel from making a mistake in public. Rosalie listened. That was the hard part, because some of what he said was true. Privacy mattered, verification mattered, medical property needed care. A hotel could not simply hand a cooler to anyone who asked. But procedure without urgency was just a locked door with better vocabulary. She said, then verify faster. Preston rubbed his eyes. You do not understand what is at stake. Rosalie almost laughed. She thought of Maribel's pill bottles lined on the kitchen shelf, each with instructions that became frightening if missed. She thought of mothers in hotel sinks washing pump parts. She thought of Daniel Monroe, whose name she did not know yet, already somewhere in the city realizing something was missing. I understand what keep cold means. Preston's jaw worked. Then he offered the temptation without meaning to. Finish your floor, stop asking questions, and I will forget the pantry issue. Forget. That was the gift. That was the threat. Rosalie touched the purple hair tie on her wrist. Her daughter's note on the fridge came back to her. I am still trying. Trying meant not letting fear do all the choosing. I need the item logged correctly, she said. Preston stared at her. Then he said, turn in your radio after shift. We will discuss tomorrow. Suspension did not always arrive with the word suspension. Sometimes it arrived as tomorrow. At 3:15, Rosalie's phone buzzed in her pocket while she was folding towels in room 1618. Maribel. Rosalie should not have answered during shift. She did anyway. Baby? Maribel's voice was tight. I am okay. The worst calls always began that way. What happened? I stood up too fast. My leg locked. I dropped the mug. It broke. Are you bleeding? No. Did you fall? No. I caught the counter. I promise. Rosalie leaned against the bathroom wall and closed her eyes. What do you need? Nothing. I cleaned it. Do not clean broken glass. I used the broom. Maribel. Mom, I am telling you because you asked me not to hide things. Rosalie opened her eyes. That was true. After the accident, Maribel had hidden pain to protect Rosalie. Rosalie had hidden money problems to protect Maribel. They had built a house of small silences until one night, Maribel missed medication because she did not want to wake her mother, and Rosalie sat on the bathroom floor with her afterward, shaking from fear, and said, "No more pretending fine." So Maribel told her about the mug. Rosalie told the truth back. "I may be in trouble at work." A pause. "For what?" "For not letting something important disappear." Maribel was quiet. Then she said, "Grandma's line again?" Rosalie looked at the brass key. "Yes, Mom, I know. No, listen. Grandma used keys. She did not kick every door off the hinges." That made Rosalie smile in spite of everything. "I am trying keys first, and if they do not work?" Rosalie looked at the cooler policy printed on copy shop paper in her cart. "Then I find the door with more people behind it." Maribel sighed, but not with annoyance, with love that had nowhere easy to go. "Be careful." "I will." "No, you will be right. That is different from careful." Rosalie did not answer immediately. Then she said, "I am still trying." Maribel's voice softened. "Me too." At 4:10, the mid-story reversal walked into the staff hallway wearing a wrinkled suit and carrying a hospital visitor badge. His name was Daniel Monroe. Rosalie almost did not recognize him from the room file because the file had been changed. He was a thin man in his 30s with tired eyes, a beard grown out past neatness, and the look of someone who had asked too many people the same question until the question had started to sound like begging. He stopped a banquet server near the elevators. "My wife stayed here, Keisha Monroe, room 1612. We left something. A cooler, please." The server pointed vaguely toward the lobby. Rosalie heard the word cooler from 15 feet away. She turned so fast her cart bumped the wall. "Sir," Daniel looked at her. "Room 1612? His face broke with hope so quickly it hurt to see. "Yes, do you have it?" He put one hand on the wall. "Thank God." Rosalie lowered her voice. "Is it medicine?" He nodded. "For my daughter." He tried to say more but had to swallow first. "She is 7. Her name is Lila. She had a procedure yesterday. The hospital arranged the room because we live 2 hours away, and they wanted us close for the morning follow-up. My wife packed everything. I carried Lila. We were late. She got sick in the lobby. I thought Keisha had the cooler. Keisha thought I had it. We did not know until we were already back at the hospital." Rosalie let him speak because panic needs somewhere to put its facts. Daniel continued. "They sent me back because the hospital pharmacy cannot replace it quickly enough. They said if we find it cold, they can check whether it is still usable. If not..." He stopped. Rosalie did not make him finish. "Where is your wife?" "At St. Anselm with Lila. I came back." "The front desk," said Parker, "not Monroe. They said there was no item under my name. I have been here 40 minutes. 40 minutes." Rosalie felt something hot move through her chest. Not anger alone. Recognition. Poor and tired people spend half their lives proving they are standing where they are standing. She led Daniel toward the banquet pantry. At the service corridor entrance, Preston appeared. "What is going on?" "This is Mr. Monroe," Rosalie said. "The cooler belongs to his family." Preston smiled the wrong smile. Guest-facing. Smooth defensive. "Sir, I am so sorry for any confusion. We are handling it." Daniel stepped forward. "Then give it to me." "Of course. We just need to verify ownership through proper channels." Daniel pulled out his ID, a hotel receipt, a hospital bracelet, a parking stub, and a folded paper with the room number written on it. Preston took none of them. "Because this appears to be medical material, we cannot release it without management review." Rosalie said, "Your review is standing here." Preston's eyes cut to her. Daniel's voice shook. "My daughter is waiting." "I understand," Preston said in the tone of a man who did not. "But we have liability." Daniel looked at him like that word belonged to another language. "Liability?" "Yes, sir. If we release medical property to the wrong individual or without documentation." Daniel held up the hospital bracelet. "This is my child's name. We need a manager and possibly legal." "How long?" Preston glanced at his tablet. "I am attempting to reach." "How long?" The question cracked, not loud. "Worse." Rosalie looked through the glass panel in the corridor door. Inside the ballroom, servers were aligning dessert plates. The auction would begin soon. Graham Ellison's foundation video would play. A child would smile on a screen while another child waited across town for a cooler sitting 50 feet from a champagne bar. That was the sharp reversal. The crisis was not that no one knew whose cooler it was. The crisis was that now they knew, and still the system wanted to protect itself before the child. Rosalie made her second costly choice. She called Amaya on the radio. "Front desk, this is housekeeping 417. I need you to print the Monroe checkout receipt, the Parker profile change log, and the lost property entry for room 1612. Static." Preston snapped, "Do not." Rosalie continued. "Also, call St. Anselm Children's main line and ask for the hospital social worker connected to the Ellison Travel Fund. Do not ask for patient information. Tell them Daniel Monroe is at the hotel trying to retrieve a refrigerated medical item. Ask them to call him directly." Preston reached for her radio. Rosalie stepped back. The brass key swung free from her collar. For 1 second, Preston looked at it like it offended him. "You are done," he said. Rosalie's voice stayed low. "Maybe." Daniel whispered, "Please, I do not want anyone losing their job." Rosalie looked at him and her face softened. "This is not your fault." "But, sir," she said, "you have enough to carry." That sentence changed Daniel, not fixed him, changed him. Because for the first time all day, someone had spoken to him like he was a father, not a problem at a desk. Amaya arrived 5 minutes later, breathless, holding papers. "I printed only what policy allows," she said quickly, as if saying it fast made it safer. "Receipt, change log, lost item record, and the hospital social worker is calling his cell." Preston looked like he might explode. Then Graham Ellison entered the corridor. He had come looking for the delay in dessert service, not the truth. "What is happening back here?" Everyone turned. Preston spoke first. People like Preston often do. "Mr. Ellison, I apologize. A housekeeping employee has mishandled guest property and is refusing management direction during the event." Graham looked at Rosalie. He saw the uniform, the cart, the papers, the frightened father, the young front desk clerk close to tears. The operations manager holding authority like a shield. He made the mistake powerful people make when time is short and appearances are loud. He believed the person whose job title matched the room. "Mrs. Vega," he said, "hand the matter to your manager." Rosalie did not move. Graham's voice hardened. "Now Daniel's phone rang," he answered with shaking hands. Yes, this is Daniel Monroe. I am at the hotel. They have it. I think they have it." He listened. Then he closed his eyes. "Okay, I will bring it straight to the hospital for inspection." Yes, I understand." He looked at Rosalie. "They said keep it cold and bring it now." Rosalie turned toward the pantry. Preston blocked the door. "No one removes anything until legal signs off." And that was when Rosalie looked past him, through the service door into the ballroom. The stage lights glowed. The donors waited. The slogan remained on the screen. "Hospitality with a human heart. Keys are not magic. They only matter if you use them to open the right door." Rosalie used her master key on the service door to the ballroom. Preston said her name like a threat. She pushed the laundry cart through, not because it was graceful, because it was fest. Daniel followed her, stunned. Amaya followed him because courage is contagious when one person finally gives it somewhere to go. Preston followed because control hates being left behind. Graham followed last, and by the time he reached the ballroom floor, every camera in the room had turned. That was the moment from the beginning. The squeaking wheels, the white cooler. The billionaire owner misunderstanding the woman who had chosen truth over permission. For a few seconds, nobody knew what to do. Then Rosalie spoke to Graham, not the crowd. "Call your hospital partner. Call the social worker. Call whoever runs your travel fund. Ask them why this family's room was changed from Monroe to Parker, why a fridge check note was cleared, why your lost property cabinet has no cold storage, and why a father with proof had to beg for what belonged to his child." The room held its breath. Graham's face flushed. "Miss Vega." "No," she said, not loud. "Enough. No more hallway." That was the line the donors remembered later. No more hallway. Because important decisions about unimportant people are always being pushed into hallways. Graham looked at Daniel. "Is this your property?" "Yes," Daniel said. "Do you have identification?" Daniel held out the papers. Graham took them. Rosalie interrupted. Do not read his private details out loud. Graham stopped. Again, there it was. Not spectacle, protection. He turned the papers just enough to verify names without exposing them to the room. He looked at the change log. Monroe to Parker, travel fund voucher, notes cleared, room reassigned, lost property entry incomplete, no cold chain record, no hourly contact log. He looked at Preston. Preston said, "Sir," in context. Graham raised one hand. A doctor from table 7 came forward. I am not involved in this patient's care, but if the item requires refrigeration, time matters. Release it to the father and let the hospital determine next steps. That sentence broke the spell. Graham picked up the cooler and handed it to Daniel. Not ceremonially, not as a savior, as a man who had been late. Go, he said. My car is at the entrance. The driver will take you. Daniel took the cooler with both hands. He looked at Rosalie. Thank you. She nodded once. Run, he did. The ballroom doors opened. Daniel disappeared toward the lobby, carrying the cooler against his chest like something breathing. Only after he was gone did the room begin to murmur. Graham turned back to Rosalie. The cameras were still rolling. He could have performed an apology. He knew how. He had given speeches at ribbon cuttings, hospital wings, disaster relief luncheons. He had language ready for regret, for partnership, for shared values. But Rosalie's face stopped him. She did not need language. She needed him to understand what had happened before he tried to sound good about it. So, for once, Graham said nothing. Security lowered their hands. Preston stared at the floor. Amaya wiped her eyes quickly and pretended not to. The gala did not recover its shine. That was good. Some rooms should not return to normal too quickly. The next morning, Rosalie arrived at work expecting to be fired. She wore her clean uniform. She packed her lunch. She counted bus fare. She wrote down the number for a legal aid clinic on the back of an old envelope. Maribel stood by the kitchen table, leaning on her cane. Do you want me to come? No, you should not go alone. I am not alone. Rosalie touched the brass key. Your grandmother is dramatic. Maribel laughed, then winced. Rosalie's smile faded. Pain? Some. I am okay. Rosalie looked at the refrigerator note. I am still trying. So am I, she said. At the hotel, staff stared and then looked away. That was how news moved through workplaces where people had bills. Everyone knew. Few people could afford to be seen knowing. Denise hugged Rosalie in the linen room without warning. You scared me stupid, she whispered. I scared myself too. Preston is upstairs, I figured. Graham Ellison is here. Rosalie pulled back. Denise's eyes were wet. So is the hospital social worker. The meeting took place in a conference room with a river view. Graham sat at the head of the table. Preston sat to his right, pale and stiff. Human Resources sat with folders. The hotel's legal counsel had a yellow pad. Amaya sat at the far end, twisting a pen. Daniel Monroe was not there. Good, Rosalie thought. He had enough rooms to sit in. A woman named Miss Calloway from St. Anselm Children's sat near the window. She began. The child received care last night. The hospital pharmacy is reviewing all handling details, so I will not discuss medical specifics. What I can say is that the family's travel fund reservation was created under a privacy alias by the booking vendor. But the parents' names remained in the notes. When the room was reassigned, those notes were removed from the active profile. The family did request a refrigerator check before leaving. That request was not completed. Preston opened his mouth. Graham said, "Let her finish." Miss Calloway continued. The father returned to the hotel and was incorrectly told no item existed under his name. The guest identity mismatch delayed return. The lack of cold storage protocol created avoidable risk. Legal counsel wrote quickly. Rosalie watched Graham. He did not look like a billionaire now. He looked like a man counting failures and realizing they had names. Graham turned to Preston. Why was the fridge check note cleared? Preston swallowed. We clear old notes during VIP reassignment to avoid service confusion. Who authorized that practice? It is common operations procedure. That is not an answer. Preston looked at legal. Legal did not save him. Graham turned to Amaya. When Ms. Vega asked you to search Monroe, were you able to? Amaya's voice was small but steady. Yes. Were you discouraged from doing that? She looked at Preston, then at Rosalie, then at Graham. Yes. Graham nodded once, not because it was okay, because truth had entered and needed room. Finally, he looked at Rosalie. I owe you an apology. She waited, he continued. I misunderstood what I was seeing. I thought you were disrupting an event. I was. A strange silence followed. Rosalie added, that part is true. Amaya nearly smiled. Graham absorbed it. You disrupted an event to correct a failure. Rosalie said, I disrupted a room that could hear me because the hallway would not. That sentence stayed with him. He folded his hands. I would like to offer you compensation for what happened. Rosalie's face did not change. I will take paid time for the hours I am sitting here. Graham blinked. Yes, of course. And Amaya looked up, Rosalie continued. She helped according to policy. Do not punish her because she printed proof. Graham nodded. Agreed. And Daniel Monroe's family should not receive a hotel bill for last night or any room issue caused by this. Already done. Rosalie looked at Preston. And you need a real medical lost property process. Not a drawer, not a sticky note, a refrigerator with a temperature log. Two-person documentation, contact attempts under every possible guest name, a policy that says staff can escalate without being threatened for slowing room turnover. Graham's expression shifted, not offended, struck, because she had not asked for rescue, she had asked for repair. He said, I agree. Rosalie did not soften, put it in writing. Legal counsel stopped writing. Graham turned to her. Draft it. Counsel looked surprised. Today? Graham said, today. That was the first public cost Graham chose to pay. It would not be the last. The ugly part came after the apology. Real repair always has an ugly part. Preston did not vanish from the story as a villain defeated by a single speech. That would have been easy, and real workplaces are rarely easy. He stayed through the investigation. He answered questions. He produced emails. He admitted that notes were often cleared when rooms were reassigned to VIP guests because executives cared about seamless arrival. He admitted that lost property had never been given cold storage because no one wanted to spend money solving a problem that did not show up on guest satisfaction surveys. He admitted that he told Rosalie to stop because he feared a public mistake more than a private delay. It did not excuse him, but it explained the road. People are often harmed by systems run by people who are not monsters. That is why systems matter. The hotel's legal counsel wanted a narrow fix, refrigerated medical items only, front desk only, manager discretion, no admission of fault in writing. Rosalie sat in the second policy meeting with her hands folded, brass key hidden under her collar, purple hair tie on her wrist. Graham asked her to speak. She looked at the lawyers first. If this policy only works when a manager agrees, it will fail again. Counsel said, we need control. Rosalie said, you had control. No one spoke for a moment. She continued. A housekeeper finds things first, not because we are special, because we open the room. We see the fridge before the manager knows the guest is gone. We see the pill bottle behind the trash can. We see the hearing aid in the sheets. We see discharge papers on the desk. If you make us wait for permission to say this might matter, you are building the mistake into the policy. A vice president from corporate operations frowned. We cannot have every employee deciding what is medical, then train every employee to recognize what needs escalation. That is a lot of training. Rosalie looked at him. So was the Gala. Graham looked down at his notes. He did not smile. He wrote it down. The first draft of the new policy used language that sounded impressive and did almost nothing. Employees shall notify appropriate management of potentially sensitive lost articles. Rosalie read it and pushed it back across the table. What does appropriate mean? Counsel said. It allows flexibility. It allows delay. They changed it. Employees who find medication, medical equipment, refrigerated medical items, medical documents needed for same-day care, mobility aids, hearing aids, oxygen accessories, or any item labeled urgent, keep cold, time-sensitive, or medically necessary must trigger the medical lost property escalation immediately. Rosalie underlined immediately. What happens when the employee triggers it? A manager said, the duty manager will review. And if the duty manager is in the ballroom, silence. They added a dedicated call line that rang front desk, security, duty manager, and housekeeping supervisor at the same time. What if the guest name does not match? They added search steps for aliases, voucher bookings, hospital travel fund reservations, room changes, and guest notes archived within the previous 72 hours. What if there is no phone number? They added alternate contact methods that protected privacy. Call booking vendor, travel fund, hospital social worker through main line without revealing medical details, email on file, emergency contact if authorized. What if the item needs cold? They added locked refrigerators. What if the refrigerator fails? Maintenance wanted to handle that quietly. Rosalie insisted on temperature logs twice per shift and a backup cooler. What if staff are afraid of getting in trouble? Corporate resisted. Graham did not. They added a no retaliation clause. Any employee who triggers escalation in good faith may not be disciplined for delay caused by safety, medical urgency, privacy protection, or documentation needs. Rosalie asked for copies at every time clock. Legal said online access was enough. Rosalie said, housekeeping logs in downstairs beside a bulletin board with last month's lunch menu. Put it where people can see it. They did. The symbol came last. A red medical alert tag. Rosalie did not invent it to be beautiful. She invented it because radios failed, managers missed calls, and carts moved. The tag had to be visible from 10 feet away. It had to clip to any cart, handle, or bag. It had to say in plain words, medical item found. Do not send to laundry, do not discard, call escalation line. The first version was too small. Rosalie rejected it. The second version used polite gray lettering. She rejected that too. People ignore polite when they are rushing. The final version was bright red, laminated, and ugly enough to work. That was the point. Preston resigned 2 weeks later, though the official email used softer words. He did not leave with a dramatic confrontation. He left after a closed meeting, carrying a cardboard box and looking older than he had during the gala. Rosalie saw him by the employee entrance. For a second, she considered walking past. Then he said, "You were right." She stopped. He looked at the pavement. "I keep replaying it. I thought if I kept everything contained, I was protecting the hotel." I did not think of what contained meant for him. Rosalie did not forgive him out loud. Forgiveness offered too quickly can become another way of asking the harmed person to clean the room. She said, "Next time, ask what the procedure is protecting." He nodded. "My wife is due in June," he said. Rosalie looked at him. That information could have sounded like manipulation. It did not. It sounded like a man who had realized fatherhood was about to make certain words unbearable. "Then remember, Daniel," she said. He nodded again. Then he left. Denise was promoted to interim operations support with authority over housekeeping escalation policies. She accepted only after Graham agreed that housekeeping staffing levels would be reviewed and that training time would be paid. Denise had spent too many years being told responsibility was an honor when it came without hours, budget, or authority. Amaya received additional training and a raise after front desk staff testified that guest notes were often cleared to make VIP transitions look clean. She cried in the employee bathroom after signing the raise paperwork, then told Rosalie she had allergies. Rosalie said, "Very emotional allergies." Amaya laughed. The Monroe family sent one message through the hospital social worker 3 weeks later. No private medical details, no dramatic update. Just a note, "Our daughter is home. Please tell Ms. Vega the dragon made it back too." Inside the envelope was a photocopy of the blue-winged dragon coloring page. The original had belonged to the child, so Rosalie had returned it with the cooler paperwork. On the copy, someone had added a yellow sun over the dragon's head and written one word in purple crayon. Safe. Rosalie kept the copy in her locker. Not framed, not displayed, tucked behind the mirror where she fixed her hair before shift. That same week, Maribel had a bad pain day. Not the kind social media turns into inspiration. The real kind. She snapped at Rosalie over soup being too hot, then cried because she had snapped, then refused help getting to the bathroom, then needed help anyway, then sat on the edge of the tub with her face in her hands. "I hate this," Maribel said. Rosalie sat on the closed toilet lid beside her. "I know. No, I hate it. I hate that you have to check on me." I hate that money is tight because of me. I hate that I am 19 and I need my mother to remind me about pills. Rosalie wanted to say all the things mothers say because they are true and still not enough. You are not a burden. I love you. We will manage. Instead, she took the purple hair tie off her wrist and held it out. Maribel looked at it. What? You gave me this at the hospital. I know. You said, keep it until I can tie my own hair again. Maribel wiped her face. I was on pain meds. I said many dramatic things. You did. Despite herself, Maribel smiled. Rosalie continued. I wear it because it reminds me you are still here. Not easy, not fixed, here. So do not insult my favorite proof. Maribel took the hair tie, stretched it between her fingers, then handed it back. Keep it longer. Rosalie put it back on her wrist. Okay. Did the hotel fix the policy? They are trying. Because of you, because of a lot of people. But you pushed the cart. Rosalie looked at her daughter. I pushed the cart because a father needed the door opened. That is all. Maribel leaned her head against Rosalie's shoulder. Grandma would have bragged about you. Your grandmother bragged about finding ripe tomatoes. She had range. They laughed softly in the bathroom, two women sitting beside a laundry basket neither of them was supposed to lift. 4 months later, the Ellison Grand hosted another medical conference. Smaller, less glamorous, more useful. Hospital social workers trained hotel staff on medical travel realities. Families explained how confusing third-party booking could be when privacy aliases, vouchers, and emergency room changes collided. A pharmacist explained in broad terms why some items could not sit in a warm cabinet all day. A patient advocate explained that the person asking frantic questions at a front desk was not being difficult. They might be counting minutes. Rosalie attended in the back row, still in uniform, still on the clock. Graham sat 2 seats away from her, not on stage. At the break, he handed her a printed copy of the new policy. Final version, he said. Rosalie read the first page. Employee-initiated medical lost property escalation. She looked at the red tag clipped to the folder, then at Graham. This will help. I hope so. Hope is not a system. He almost smiled. No, it is not. She turned the page. You added night shift training. You told me people lose things at night too. They do. And translation cards. Good. And a no retaliation clause. Rosalie stopped reading. That mattered. Not because clauses fix courage, because they give courage something to point at when power starts forgetting. She handed the folder back. Keep copies at time clocks, she said. Not just online. Graham took out a pen and wrote it down. Rosalie watched him. What? He asked. Nothing. No, say it. It is strange, she said, watching a man with his name on the building take notes from housekeeping. Graham looked toward the ballroom doors. I should have done it sooner. Yes, Rosalie said. No comfort, no performance, just the truth, clean and small. 6 months later, Rosalie was training a new housekeeper named Talia on the 16th floor. Talia was 23, nervous, and trying to move fast enough to impress people who had not yet told her speed was never satisfied. Rosalie showed her how to check drawers, underbeds, bathroom hooks, safes left open, outlets, refrigerators, pillowcases, trash cans, and the space between the mattress and wall. Do not just clean what looks dirty, Rosalie said. Look for what someone may not know they left behind. Talia nodded quickly. Rosalie slowed down. I mean it. People leave pieces of their lives in rooms. Medicine, papers, wedding rings, dentures, chargers, court notices, baby blankets. Sometimes a thing looks small because it is not yours. Talia picked up a child's stuffed turtle from behind a curtain. Like this? Exactly like that. They tagged it and logged it. At noon, Rosalie took her break in the staff room. Maribel had texted a picture from campus, a notebook, a coffee, her cane leaning against the chair, and one sentence. I made it to class. Still trying. Rosalie stared at the message until her eyes burned. Then she typed back, proud of you. Still trying too. In her locker, the copy of the Blue Dragon had begun to curl at the edges. The brass key rested against her chest under her uniform. The purple hair tie had stretched almost too loose to stay on her wrist, but she kept it there anyway. 3 symbols, all ordinary. A brass key from a woman who cleaned offices and believed doors mattered. A purple hair tie from a daughter learning that needing help did not mean failing. A red medical alert tag that turned one housekeeper's disobedience into a rule other workers could use without begging permission. That afternoon, Graham Ellison walked the service hallway alone. No cameras, no donors, no speech. He stopped near the housekeeping office, where the new policy hung beside the time clock in English and Spanish. A laundry attendant had taped a handwritten note under it. When in doubt, tag it. Graham read the note twice. Rosalie came around the corner, pushing an empty cart. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The hotel moved around them. Elevators chimed. Radios clicked. A banquet cart rattled downstairs. Somewhere above, a guest closed a door, trusting without thinking that the room had been cleaned. The locks worked. The towels were folded, and anything left behind might still find its way home. Graham nodded toward the red tag on Rosalie's cart. Have you had many? 17 since the policy started. 17? Mostly simple. Hearing aids, insulin pens, a medical device charger. 1 envelope of discharge papers a guest needed for follow-up. 2 were urgent. He looked shaken. Rosalie did not rescue him from that feeling. Good systems should make powerful people feel the weight they used to outsource. He said, I thought hospitality was about making people comfortable. Rosalie leaned one hand on the cart handle. It is. Then she added, but comfort is not always soft. Sometimes it is knowing that if you forget something important, the people cleaning the room know what to do. Graham nodded slowly. Down the hall, Talia called out, Mrs. Vega, room 1408 has medication in the mini-fridge. I clipped the red tag and called the line. Rosalie turned immediately. Good. Did you open it? No. Did you note the room number and time? Yes. Is it still cold? Yes. Rosalie looked back at Graham. He stepped aside, not like a man granting permission, like a man finally understanding he was not the door. Rosalie walked toward Talia, one hand touching the brass key at her neck, the purple hair tie soft against her wrist, the red tag bright on the cart. Nothing about the hotel was magically healed. Rooms still had to be cleaned too fast. Guests still complained about things workers could not control. Rent still rose. Maribel still had hard days. Graham still liked polished events and had to be reminded that service corridors were part of the building. Policies still depended on people brave enough to use them. But something had changed direction. A cooler had not disappeared into laundry. A father had not been left begging in a hallway. A billionaire had learned that human heart was not a slogan on a ballroom screen. It was a process, a log, a phone call, a cold shelf, a worker believed before the crisis became beautiful enough for a speech. And maybe that is where this story should leave us. Not with a rich man redeemed. Not with a housekeeper rescued. Not with a check solving the kind of failure that was never only about money. Leave it with a brass key warming under a gray uniform. Leave it with a purple hair tie stretched thin but still holding. Leave it with a red tag clipped to a laundry cart, bright enough that the next invisible worker does not have to roll into a ballroom just to be heard. Because every hotel room, every hospital trip, every bus ride, every apartment hallway, every quiet system that works, when we are too tired to notice, depends on people who see what others leave behind. And the next time you walk out of a clean room without looking back, maybe ask yourself, who checked the small places after you left, and what did they protect that you never even knew was missing?